Thailand, the heaven on the verge. Considering the phrase Thailand is like heaven without being confined by the conventional definition of heaven may lead us to an inconclusive debate about whether the statement is logically sound or whether it holds significant value for contemplation. For me, defining the term heaven before pondering whether the aforementioned statement is true is of utmost importance. The definition of heaven I employ both personally and collaboratively in my work is a place that is just right. Similarly, for easier contemplation, we must also define hell, the antithesis of heaven. My working definition is a place where it's never quite right. Whenever the ratio of hell to heaven increases in people's minds, despair unconsciously rises. If we don't transform this despair into responsibility soon enough, the very concept of heaven will vanish and true chaos will ensue in society or communities. Our country, though not affluent enough to magically bestow a lavish lifestyle upon every citizen, always had a sense of adequacy. In my memories, if there was a shortage of food, there was always the goodwill of neighbors and friends to rely on. In the past, households would keep a jar of drinking water for thirsty passers-by, ensuring they had something to quench their thirst and carry on. Regarding major natural disasters, we are fortunate to be in a region with minimal threats. We barely fear earthquakes, storms, avalanches, or wildfires that could force us to relocate. The abundance of the past, the minimal natural threats, and the structure bestowed upon us by this earth almost suggest that if there were a real heaven as depicted in myths, our nation could easily be considered one of those heavenly realms. This is because of the adequacy provided to everyone. Next, let's examine the culture and traditions that allow us to coexist harmoniously. Several times I've posed questions to my students and many others. Even the fundamental governance system of our country, which I often tell my younger peers, is that for me, in the distant past, our homeland was not governed by a paternal system as we have learned. I feel and understand because for me it feels more like a father taking care of child system, or if you'd call it a paternal governance, I'd rather you call it a father protects and cares for his child system. I believe that our country's system and culture have been trying to follow this path since the past, because there are records of freedom in trade and freedom for anyone to do anything. Even in the era when I was born and during my childhood, as far as I know, our regular life in Thailand, I've never seen anyone use weapons to force someone to do or not do something at this time. And we have developed the freedom to coexist just right, leading to terms like manners marieth and consideration kernchi. Just the word consideration that we have in many nations and many languages cannot convey the same sense of coexistence. This word consideration, if we look closely at this word consideration, I believe that we can create principles and human rights laws based on cultural foundations derived from this word. I believe we can get better laws than any other countries trying to find the perfect fit for such laws. To make coexistence just right, human rights that are demanded without any consideration or mutual respect in cohabitation could be transformed into laws for perfect coexistence. How? Even during times when our country's conflicting thoughts increase, we haven't reached the point of using weapons to force each other in our daily lives. This differs from the cultures of many other countries, which in my opinion is due to the cultural foundation our ancestors established, which still somewhat works through our language. Have you ever noticed, even though Thailand has experienced the most coups, it's strange that every time there's a coup or revolution in the past, this country never reached a point where the nation would split and collapse. Every time, I always ask the younger generation, who had the opportunity to receive knowledge and skills from me, this pressing question: do you think our country as it exists and has been shaped to this day is purely by coincidence? Or is it because of countless sacrifices made by people, many of whom we may never even know their names, that we get to enjoy this stability and environment? Even though I wasn't born wealthy and had my share of hardships, from searching through garbage for sustenance to sleeping under a stone table during my university days, I still regard this nation as a paradise. I'm fortunate because my parents taught me to appreciate what this country has given us and to recognize the countless sacrifices made for us to have a homeland. while my father was a low-ranking government official and my mother ran a simple food stall, serving meals to the residents of the government quarters where we lived during my childhood, I always felt that this land was heaven. This sentiment was instilled in me by my parents and is evident in some of the memories I've captured in my Past Memories album on my personal Facebook page. I write this article to express my feelings because I don't want to see the paradise which I've treasured since childhood and up to the present moment to fade away. There is a rising number of self-centered individuals and irresponsible ideologies that are becoming overwhelming, too much for any sacrifice to bear. Thank you for every sacrifice made for this country, allowing us to coexist harmoniously. I'd also like to extend my gratitude to the book Ne Jintha Pu Pid Shinglangfra, the translated royal compositions of His Majesty King Bhumibol Adulyadej.